Oh, howdy y'all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile, and today I wanted to showcase the current status of the Projectile Vomit build. Projectile Vomit build is named because it vomits projectiles everywhere over the screen. It's more intended to slaughter your own GPU than it is to slaughter enemies, although I've got it to the point that it's now at least functioning in lower tier maps. And I think that that's probably the best introduction that I can give to it. It's vomiting the Dragon microtransaction fireball effect everywhere. This is a low tier map, it's only a tier 3, and the performance actually feels very similar on even upper yellow maps. The reason that it feels similar is because as long as there's multiple enemies on the screen, your DPS is actually serviceable. But as soon as you're at single target situation, that your DPS starts to become absolutely ratchet awful. And this is one of my favourite situations here, even though it's pretty dangerous. I've got an allies can't die enemy. That just... Oh shit, I've got these idiots. I'm really badly set up against these, and I want more things for my skills to chain and bounce off. So I'm going to deliberately proc the Legion whilst I'm still fighting the Betrayal guys. And in fact, I'll function much better against the Legion than I will against just the Betrayal guy. And here we go, this is about as an extreme an example as you'll get of what this build looks like in practice. A whole bunch of Soul Eater stacks, lots of shit going everywhere all over the screen. And finally we got Jordan dead. Like, that took a while, because he was a single target fight, whereas all of the other monsters were AoE fights.
This syndicate is full of
I'll take you in.
and reasonable. I like you, Exile.
Always like the Jorgen's quotes. So basically the idea of the build is that you're cast on Critical Strike, Fireball, and as many various projectile spread effects as you can get. So I'm using Fork support, which causes your projectiles upon first hitting something to be consumed and then replaced by two new projectiles at a slight angle to the original one. And then once they're there, they're chaining multiple times. One chain comes from the Ascendancy, one chain comes from, which is Deadeye, and one chain comes from the bow that these fireballs are in. I could also use chain support if I wanted. The reason I'm not doing so is because it absolutely cripples your damage output to have that as well. The fireballs originally are coming from Barrage, which is linked to cast on Critical Strike, and that's how we get everything started. So I score a crit, and then the world seems to burn. Finally, there's a greater multiple projectiles in there as well. That's the reason you're seeing 5 fireballs at a time instead of 1. There's a number of upgrades that would make this build even spammier. The obvious one is Dying Sun, and that is the next thing I'm going to fit in. But as well as that, there's more area of effect nodes on the tree. I picked up one of the clusters, I haven't picked up the other one yet, and that's just going to be a case of as soon as I have a few more respec points, I will be doing so. And let's just have a look, see what else there is to clean up. Now I'm firing off a... Oh, let's get out of that thing there. I'm firing off Val Fireball, partly because Val Fireball fits the build. I mean, it's a horribly ugly aesthetic, and it just puts shit all over the screen. The other thing that it does is it triggers Soul Eater. Soul Eater is a mechanic where for the next 10 seconds, any enemy that you kill gives you a buff, a stack of the Soul Eater buff. What the Soul Eater buff does, amongst other things, it gives you life regen, it gives you various other survival stats. The one that matters for this build is it gives you AoE. And this stacks without limit. This comes from the Zerfi's Heart unique amulet, which is the only... Well, it's one of 2 expensive items the build wears. There's about 4 exalts at present in the Legion League. It has been much more expensive in the past. And it mostly comes from the divination card, the Life Thief, which I believe drops in Crimson Temple maps, but it might be Desecrated Temple instead. In any case, I've never had one drop for me. It is not a common drop, but plenty of people run those maps just because they're there, and so there's plenty of Zerfi's Hearts available inside a trade league. The other somewhat expensive item that I've got is this bow that has both Socketed Gems chain 1 additional time and Socketed Gems is supported by Cats on Critical. However, it's only a 5-link. 6-link would be more expensive. I paid 3 exalts for it as a 4-link, so basically as an unlinked item, and then I went and 5-linked it myself, which took me about 50 orbs of fusing, but on average it would take more than that. It takes about, I believe it takes about 85 fusing orbs on average to 5-link an item, and 1,000 to 5-link to 6-link one. That's going to be one of the next upgrades that this build needs. So there is Dying Sun. Dying Sun does everything this build wants. It gives area, it gives more projectiles. It's basically absolutely nuts. The only reason I haven't got it yet is that I need to do more gearing in order to be able to handle the loss of a flask. Currently I have an instant life flask and a slow life flask. I have a Quicksilver and I have a mana flask. I need to get rid of that mana flask in order to be able to effectively use the oh. Sorry, I just had to pay attention for a second there. In order to be able to effectively use the flask in question, I need to be able to get rid of the mana flask, and that's going to require getting an appropriate Legion item.
Just do it, you bastard. Like the Phoenix, I don't
really care about Coral anyway, do I?
Brutal. More.
You're my deal's a deal.
Ah, that's the horrible map. In any case, I am handling my power charges by virtue of using a Blasphemy setup. So I have Assassin's Mark linked to Blasphemy, and I have Anger as my other reservation at the moment. Time will tell whether Anger is the right choice or not there. It certainly functions. It's adding a fair bit of damage, but maybe there's something else that's better. In any case, that's some gameplay footage. There's just one map. There's still plenty more to go on this before I'll be confident in actually recommending this build. It's not there yet, but it's been fun and I will continue to work on it, and when it's in a state that it is able to be recommended rather than just talked about, I will link a full build guide. However, if you're wanting to play it in the short term, what I suggest you do is you take a passive tree that would be set up for any of critical Firestorm, critical Flame Blast, or critical Fireball. A passive tree set up for any of those that is modified in order to touch the Ranger start area, and it then picks up the Deadeye Ascendancy. That's all you need. If you got any questions, fire away below.